আরে জয়েন হচ্ছে না তো, একটু দেখো।
সৌরভ, পিডিএফটা কোথায় দেখাবো?
কোনটা? ওটা আপনার স্যার মিনিমাইজ করা আছে। আপনার পেন ড্রাইভ?
হ্যাঁ, পেন ড্রাইভে পিডিএফটা খুললাম তো। কোথায় দেখাবো ওটা?
কোথায় দেখাবে? আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, করে দিচ্ছি।
এটা
কোনটা? এইটা। আচ্ছা ফুল স্ক্রিন করে নিন। এটা make a reader my default video ইউজ করে দিন স্যার। ডিফল্ট হয়ে গেলে সুবিধা।
এবার কি করবো?
বুঝতে কেটে নিন
এটা
না না, এই যে এইখানে ফুল স্ক্রিন করে নিন। স্ক্রিন শেয়ার করে।
Achha, last day I have discussed about the finally I have discussed about the stress corrosion. Now today I shall discuss about the remaining part of the corrosion chapter. My voice is clear? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now today I shall discuss about the microbiological corrosion and the influence of the corrosion, the different factors which influences the corrosion. Now I shall discuss about the microbiological corrosion. Actually, now I shall discuss about the microbiological corrosion. In microbiological corrosion, degradation of the material occurs by bacteria, fungi, or their byproducts. And certain type of bacteria, they consume oxygen, and due to consumption of oxygen, the concentration of oxygen will vary, which is responsible for corrosion. And you know that corrosion occurs in the region of the material where the oxygen concentration is less. That means the particular region of the material in which the oxygen concentration is less, that will act as anodic region, and the region in which the oxygen concentration will more, that will act as cathodic region. Therefore, in the anodic region, the oxidation reaction occurs and the liberated electron will flow to the cathodic region, where the oxygen along with moisture, they absorb, they will consume the liberated electron to form the hydroxide ion. But certain type of bacteria, that is the sulfate reducing bacteria, the name of that bacteria is desulfovibrio, and this bacteria can grow in oxygen free condition, and this bacteria facilitate the corrosion reaction. In earlier the microbial, just now I told you the certain bacteria, they consume oxygen, therefore the difference in concentration of the oxygen will occur, and which facilitate the corrosion. But certain type of bacteria, that is disulfo vibrio, which also facilitate the corrosion reaction, which can grow in oxygen free condition. If it will grow in oxygen free condition, therefore there is no question of absorption of oxygen. Now how the corrosion will occur by this type of bacteria? Actually, this type of bacteria, they can facilitate the corrosion of iron by consuming hydrogen, which is produced in the cathodic area. Well, actually, in this type of corrosion reaction, the hydrogen which is evolved, that is consumed by bacteria, therefore the cathode reaction becomes faster and the corrosion is facilitated. In the anodic region, the metal, that is iron, which is present, that undergo oxidation reaction to form Fe to Fe2 plus 2 electron. And the electron which is generated in the anodic region, that will move to the cathodic region, where the H plus ion will consume that electron to form hydrogen. And the bacteria that reduce sulfate concentration by using the H plus ion. The H plus ion, it will consume the electron to form hydrogen, and the sulfate which is present, that is reduced by the bacteria. That means sulfate, it will interact with H plus ion to form sulfide S2 minus. And Fe2 plus, it will combine with S2 minus to form the corrosion product, that is iron sulfide. Okay, so this is one type of microbiological corrosion, which by the microorganisms, that is bacteria, which can grow in oxygen free environment, and the corrosion occurs due to the consumption of H plus ion, that means which facilitates the cathodic reaction. Okay, is it clear? Now I shall discuss about the different factors which influences the corrosion reaction. Different factors which influences the corrosion reaction. Now first I shall discuss about the First I shall discuss about the nature of the metal. Nature of the metal, it influences the corrosion reaction. That means the susceptibility of the metal to undergo corrosion, it depends on the type of the metal. That means the metal with low reduction potential. We have discussed the electrochemical series, and in the electrochemical series, the metal which is present above the hydrogen, that means the metal which have low reduction potential, they have high reactivity, and that means those metal will act as anodic region, and the oxidation reaction occurs for those metals, and those metals are more susceptible to corrosion. Another important factor which also influence the corrosion reaction, that is what is that factor? That is the difference in electrode potential. The difference in electrode potential which also influences the corrosion reaction. Now what is that one? Actually, if the potential difference between the anodic and the cathodic area is more, then the corrosion reaction becomes faster. And the difference in potential between the anodic and the cathodic area, which is called open circuit potential difference. the difference in potential between the anodic and cathodic area, that is called open circuit potential difference. And if the open circuit potential difference is more, then the rate of corrosion becomes faster. When I have discussed about the bimetallic type of corrosion, I told you that if you want, that means if you want to join the two metals, and in that case, to prevent the bimetallic corrosion, if you have to choose the metal so that the potential difference between the two metal will be very less, then only you can prevent the corrosion reaction. Now next one is the surface state of the material. Surface state of the material, which also influence the rate of corrosion reaction. That means in the pitting corrosion, I told you that if the surface of the metal is the matte type of surface, that is rough surface, then dust particle, sand particles, oil droplets or water droplets can accumulate. And the region in which the dust, sand or oil droplets or water droplets are accumulated, that in that region the metal which is present, that undergo corrosion, because in that region the oxygen concentration is less compared to the other region of the metal where there is no dust particle. Therefore, in that region the corrosion will occur, and the particular type of corrosion which occurs in that region of the metal, that is the pitting corrosion. That means pit formation will occur. I have already discussed. So the surface state of the metal which affects the rate of corrosion, and if the surface of the metal it is mirror finished, then the corrosion will not take place. That means the dust particle, 1 minute. হ্যালো, হ্যাঁ আমি একটু ক্লাস আছে, একটু পরে ফোন করো, ওই 1টার দিকে। তাহলে if the surface of the metal it is mirror finished, so that the dust, sand or oil droplets cannot accumulate on the metal surface, and this type of corrosion can be prevented. Now another factor, that is the hydrogen over voltage. Hydrogen over voltage, this is another factor which also influences the corrosion reaction.
Hello.
Actually the hydrogen over voltage,
Hello.
it is the measure of the tendency of the electrode to liberate hydrogen gas.
Hello.
Tendency of the electrode to liberate hydrogen gas. If you try to remember the hydrogen evolution type of corrosion, then you have seen in that particular type of corrosion, I told you that the metal, when it is exposed to dilute acid, then the corrosion of the metal will occur, because the iron will act as anodic region, and oxidation of the iron will occur to form the electron, that is Fe to Fe2 plus 2 electron. And that electron will move to the cathodic region, where H plus ion will accept the electron to form hydrogen gas. The metal with low hydrogen over voltage on its surface is more susceptible for corrosion. Low hydrogen over voltage, which means that means the faster cathodic reaction will occur. If the cathodic reaction becomes faster, that means the more electron which is liberated from the anodic region, that is they are accumulated in the cathodic region, and the anodic reaction, that means the corrosion reaction becomes faster. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now another factor, if you remember, the last day I have discussed the formation of protective coating, film of oxide, formation of layer due to corrosion. That is mostly the oxide layer, which is formed on the metal surface due to corrosion. And the layer which is formed on the metal surface, that may be either protective or non-protective in nature. And on that context, I have discussed about the peeling Bedworth rule. And you know, if the that is the layer which is formed on the metal surface, it formed on the metal surface, it is more or equal to that of the volume of the metal, then the layer which is formed, that is non-porous in nature. If it is non-porous in nature, therefore the further corrosion of the metal is prevented, because the corrosive gases cannot come in contact with the metal. Whereas if the volume of the layer, it is less than the volume of the metal, then what happens? The layer which is formed on the metal surface, corrosive layer which is formed on the metal surface, that is porous in nature. And if it is porous, then it is non-protective. That means through that pores, the corrosive gas can penetrate and can come in contact with the metal, and entire amount of the metal will undergo corrosion. So this is another factor which influences the corrosion reaction, that is the protective film which is formed on the metal surface. Okay. Now the next factor, that is the pH. Generally, under acidic condition, the corrosion is facilitated. And under basic condition, in general, the corrosion is prevented. The lower the pH of the corrosion medium, higher will be the corrosion rate. Because if the pH is lower, that means the medium is acidic, and acidic medium facilitates the corrosion reaction. Whereas if the medium is basic, that means pH more than 7, then the corrosion is prevented. And it is found that if pH greater than 10, corrosion of iron will stop, because the protective coating of FeOH2, it is formed. But in case of aluminium and zinc, the corrosion becomes faster in alkaline medium. That's why I told you, in general, mostly the iron, corrosion of iron, it is prevented in alkaline medium. Whereas if the pH of the medium is acidic, that means less than 3, then severe corrosion of the metal will occur. And which type of corrosion will occur under acidic condition? That is the hydrogen evolution type of corrosion. And in the cathodic region, the hydrogen gas is evolved. So this is another factor which also influences the corrosion reaction. Now next one is the temperature. How temperature influences the corrosion reaction? During corrosion reaction, what happens? The oxidation will take place in the anodic region, and reduction will take place in the cathodic region. In the oxidation process, the electron, it is liberated, and during the reduction process reaction which takes place in the cathodic region, that electron is consumed. So if you increase the temperature, then what happens? The conductance of the medium increases, and ultimately increases the rate of corrosion. So increased temperature increases the rate of the corrosion due to increase in the conductance. Now another factor which also influences the corrosion reaction, that is the cathodic and anodic area. Cathodic and anodic area influences the corrosion reaction. If you try to remember the pitting corrosion, then in the pitting corrosion, I'm showing you the picture of the pitting corrosion that I have discussed in the last class. This one. Okay. So in this type of corrosion, this is the small region in which the dust or sand or oil droplets are accumulated. And that means that this region will act as anodic region, whereas this region and this region on the metal plate will act as cathodic region. The relative size of the cathodic to anodic area, it greatly influences the rate of corrosion. When the anodic region will be less, cathodic region will be more, then corrosion reaction becomes faster. Anodic region will be less, cathodic region will be more, then corrosion reaction becomes faster. Why? Because the electron which is liberated from the anodic region, that will move to the cathodic region and it is consumed due to cathode reaction. And more cathode reaction requires more electron, and as a result the corrosion becomes faster. Okay, is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When the ratio of anodic to cathodic region is small, that means smaller anodic region and larger cathodic region, then faster and intensive anodic reaction occurs. And the overall corrosion reaction becomes facilitated. Whereas when the ratio of anodic to cathodic region is larger, that means larger anodic region, that means this region is larger and cathodic region is smaller. Then the electron which is liberated from the anodic region, that will not consume in the cathodic region, and slower anodic reaction will occur, and as a result the corrosion occurs very slowly. These are the various factors which actually influences the corrosion reaction. These are the various factors which influences the corrosion reaction. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So this is all about the corrosion. Now I will start the new chapter, that is the water pollution. I will start the new chapter, that is the water pollution. Okay, so I will stop this sharing and I will share the new one.
এটা অসুবিধা হচ্ছে তোমার?
না,
So I think it will be better. I just remove the middle class one because I am taking
ওটা আসছে না না ওতে?
with my side because it is actually occupying a huge volume. As you are not interested to them, so I want to remove that class because I think it is not actually maintained. Don't take it away
Hello.
because I found from the very beginning
এটা কোথায় কি?
none of you are interested in the beginning. But it is still there in my guide. I found some problem with the Google classes and the person.
Okay, now I shall discuss about the water pollution. In the water pollution, first I shall discuss about the hydrological cycle. You have already read hydro. the Earth's surface temperature is increasing. And water body, mainly the ocean, which is the reservoir of heat. As ocean is reservoir of heat, then what happens? The temperature of the water body is increased. And massive evaporation of surface water will take place. So this is the reason for massive evaporation of the surface water. I know you have idea about the greenhouse effect, because there are six greenhouse gases, that is the carbon dioxide, water, nitrous oxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbon, ozone. These are the 6 greenhouse gases. But among these 6 greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide is the major greenhouse gas, because the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is maximum compared to that of the other greenhouse gases. But with respect to other greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide is relatively insignificant non-pollutant species present in the atmosphere. That means, and if we consider the greenhouse efficiency, then the greenhouse efficiency of carbon, if you consider the relative greenhouse efficiency, then if the greenhouse efficiency of carbon dioxide it is 1, then the greenhouse efficiency of chlorofluorocarbon it is 15,000. So that you can imagine that the other greenhouse gases which are present, they are more they can influence more in the global warming. But as the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is very high, so it is considered as a major greenhouse gas. And before industrial revolution, around 1884, the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere it is 284 ppm, parts per million, whereas in the present day, due to massive industrial revolution, the present level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere it is 356 ppm. So carbon dioxide, as the concentration is very high, it is considered as a major greenhouse gas. Now you know that the solar radiation, when it is coming to the Earth's surface, the carbon dioxide, water vapor, and other greenhouse gases, they form a layer or blanket on the Earth's surface. Carbon dioxide, they form suppose if you consider this is the atmosphere, and above this atmosphere, carbon dioxide and water vapor, they form a layer on the above the Earth's surface. When the solar radiation can come to the Earth's surface, they are coming in the visible region. That means wavelength is less. Carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide and the radiation which is coming from the sun to the Earth's surface, that radiation can easily pass through this layer. Now it is absorbed by the Earth's surface, and the entire process is going on during the daytime. When the evening progresses, what happens? The Earth emits the absorbed radiation. And when the Earth emits the absorbed radiation, then what happens? The radiation, it is shifted to longer wavelength. And when it is shifted to longer wavelength, then carbon dioxide and water vapor layer, they cannot pass the longer wavelength radiation, and it is re-emitted back to the Earth's surface. As a result, the Earth's surface temperature is increased, and that is the reason for greenhouse effect. Now, can you tell me why, when the solar radiation it is coming to the Earth, it is coming in the lower or shorter wavelength, it can easily pass through carbon dioxide and water vapor layer, but when it is reflected back, it is shifted to longer wavelength, that is in the infrared radiation. Okay. Why this type of shifting or of wavelength will occur? Because I think you have read the Wien's displacement law in the black body radiation. In black body radiation, you have read the Wien's displacement law. Have you read? That is, wavelength at maximum intensity is inversely proportional to the absolute temperature of a black body. That is, lambda max is proportional to 1 by T. When the solar radiation it is coming to the Earth's surface, the temperature of the incoming radiation is more. The wavelength will be less. Now that radiation it is absorbed by the Earth's surface, and when it is reflected back, the temperature of the reflected radiation it is less, so it is shifted to longer wavelength, and that is the main reason for greenhouse effect. And as a result, the ocean or any water body, they are the reservoir of heat. Therefore, the temperature of the ocean or water body is increased. And as the temperature is increased, then what happens? The evaporation, massive evaporation of the surface water will occur. Am I clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, next part of the hydrological cycle, that is the cloud formation. Okay. Now, you listen very carefully. Now, you imagine a parcel of air. You just imagine a parcel of air. Parcel of air which is constituted by air molecules. Air, that means moisture is there, and it is surrounded by an imaginary boundary. You consider an air parcel which is constituted by air molecules and surrounded by an imaginary boundary. Now, when this parcel of air will move in the upward direction, then what happens? When this parcel of air, suppose this is a parcel of air, it will move in the upward direction, then what happens? It will experience less pressure. And as it will experience less pressure by the surrounding atmosphere, then temperature of the air parcel will decrease. And as the temperature of the air parcel will decrease, then what happens? The water molecule or moisture which is present inside the parcel, their temperature is also decreased. So the condensation of the moisture will occur. And during condensation process, what happens? The small water droplets, they can come closer to each other and will form a large droplets, and the cloud formation will occur. And when the large droplets are formed, then air cannot hold those droplets, and they can come to the Earth's surface in the form of rain, which is called precipitation. Okay, that is called precipitation. Okay, now after precipitation, what happened? The surface runoff. That means water on the land surface reaches to the ground. Water on the land surface, they reaches to the groundwater through soil and in the soil, you know, there is the impervious layer of rocks and clay, and the fine cracks which are present in the soil. Through that the cracks, the water which will mix with the groundwater, and below that is the ground, there is a natural water level, or which is called water table, and water moves, and the rainwater through surface runoff, it is mixed with the groundwater, and from the groundwater, the water which is again moves up by capillary action, and as a result, the continuous supply of water to the surface layer of soil will occur, and then it is absorbed by the plant roots in absence of rain. So this is the complete cycle in which the exchange of water will occur through the atmosphere, land, sea, the living plants and animals. And this entire process, it is called hydrological cycle. Okay, is it clear? The hydrological cycle? Hello, বোঝা গেছে?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I shall discuss about the water pollution. Very simple. I will discuss the water pollution. In water pollution, first you have to know what is the reason due to which the water becomes polluted. That means the main main substance, which one is the main substance in water, and why the concentration of that one is decreased in the water due to pollution. So the main substance which is actually the measure of water quality, that is the dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen, it is an important water quality parameter. If the dissolved oxygen content in water is decreased, then we can say that water cannot be used in any type of drinking purpose or recreational purpose. That means the water becomes polluted. So we have to know which factors actually are responsible for decrease in the dissolved oxygen in the water. So that is the reason for water pollution. Now, in the water pollution, the main thing is the oxygen demanding waste. That means the substance which will consume the dissolved oxygen. Oxygen demanding waste means if those waste they are mixed with water, they can consume oxygen from the water body, and as a result what happened, the oxygen concentration in the water body is decreased. If the oxygen concentration in the water body is decreased, that means the dissolved oxygen content is decreased, then the water becomes polluted. The oxygen demanding waste, when they mixed with the water body, then due for oxidation of those oxygen demanding waste, the oxygen is consumed from the water, and as a result the dissolved oxygen level in the water body is decreased, and that water cannot be used in any type of purposes. Now we have to know what is the value of dissolved oxygen content for a good water quality parameter. For a good water quality parameter, that means we can say that this water is a good water, it can be used for drinking purpose or any type of recreational purpose. The saturated value of dissolved oxygen is 8 to 15 milligram per liter. The saturated value of dissolved oxygen, it is 8 to 15 milligram per liter. And the optimum dissolved oxygen required for healthy aquatic life, that means the fish, aquatic plants and animals, they can grow, that is 5 to 8 milligram per liter. That means if the dissolved oxygen level is below 5, then it is a bad water quality parameter. 8 to 15 milligram per liter, that is the saturated value of dissolved oxygen, which is the good water quality parameter. But optimum level of dissolved oxygen required for healthy fish and aquatic life, that is 5 to 8 milligram per liter. And if the dissolved oxygen level is below 3 milligram per liter, then that water cannot be used in any purposes, and that is a bad water quality parameter. And now we have to know what are the oxygen demanding waste. Actually, oxygen demanding waste are generally biodegradable organic substances. And biodegradable, from where it is generated? Biodegradable organic substances, they are generated from municipal wastewater, effluent from certain industries. Which type of industry? That is food processing industry, paper and pulp industry. This and the effluent from this industry contains huge amount of oxygen demanding waste. That means biodegradable substances. And when these biodegradable substances are mixed with water body, then for degradation of those waste, degradation means the oxidation of those waste, the oxygen is consumed from the water body, and as a result the dissolved oxygen level in the water body is decreased. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Actually, see, function will always start with an alphabet. Okay.
Now I shall discuss about the effect of drop of dissolved oxygen. What are the effect of drop of dissolved oxygen in the water body? If the dissolved oxygen level in the water body will decrease, then the aquatic life will face different challenges, then different problems. Aquatic life means the aquatic fish, aquatic plants, other animals, their life are threatened. And under extreme condition, that means if the dissolved oxygen level is very, very low, then they can the death of aquatic plants or animal will occur. Now, suppose listen, the biodegradable substances, they are mixed with the water body, and for oxidation of those waste, the oxygen is consumed. That means for degradation of those waste, oxygen is consumed. As a result, what happened? The dissolved oxygen level is decreased, and aquatic life, plants or animal, they will face threat of their life. And ultimately what happened? The death of aquatic plants or animal will occur. And when the death of aquatic plants or animal will occur, then what happened? For degradation of they are also present in the water body as waste, and for degradation of those waste, further the oxygen which is dissolved oxygen which is present in the water body, that is consumed. Okay, so ultimately the dissolved oxygen level in the water body, it will decrease more, and that water becomes polluted water, and it cannot be used for any type of drinking or any type of regular use purpose or recreational purpose. The water cannot be used. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now there are two methods by which we can measure the dissolved oxygen level in the water body. What are the two methods? The first one is the biochemical oxygen demand, which is called BOD, and second one is the chemical oxygen demand, which is called COD. Biochemical oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. These are the two different ways by which we can measure the dissolved oxygen level in the water body. In detail, I will discuss later on. এক মিনিট আর পরের ক্লাসে লিংকটা একটু পাঠিয়ে দিতে হবে, আমি তো সময় যে টাইপ WhatsApp করব. Okay, now what is the dissolved oxygen? Dissolved oxygen, it is actually the available oxygen in the dissolved dissolved condition.
adequate function
Available oxygen present in water under dissolved condition. And you know, just now I told you the saturated value of dissolved oxygen, that is 8 to 15
Sir, আপনার
milligram
কথা
per
কেটে
liter.
যাচ্ছে। Sir, your voice is lagging.
That is for a এটা হচ্ছে CSC আর মেকানিক্যাল। And the value of this liter that depends on temperature level in the water body. It's very important because the actually the oh a connection কেটে গেছে হ্যাঁ কেটে যাচ্ছে বন্ধ করে দাও কেটে যাচ্ছে হ্যালো
Hello, sir.
হ্যাঁ শোনা যাচ্ছে এবারে
Yes, sir.
ওকে নেটের প্রবলেম আবার ও শেষ হয়ে গেলে পাঠাবো
না আমি ফোন থেকে আমি করে পাঠিয়ে দিই।
তুমি ফোনটা নিলেই তো কেটে যাচ্ছে
না না ফোন থেকে নেওয়ার জন্য যাচ্ছে না। ঠিক আছে বলুন স্যার।
ওকে তাহলে নাও তাহলে ডিজলভ অক্সিজেন ইট ইজ ভেরি ক্লিয়ার শোনা যাচ্ছে তো আমার কথা হ্যালো হ্যালো
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
dissolved oxygen it is very important water quality parameter and through biochemical oxygen demand test which measure the amount of biodegradable waste. Actually biochemical oxygen, what is biochemical oxygen demand? That is the amount of oxygen consumed for biologically degrade the waste. That means in this process the waste can be degraded by microorganisms, and during that process how much amount of oxygen is consumed that is determined. তাহলে BOD biochemical oxygen demand that is the amount of oxygen required by microorganisms for biologically degrade the waste. Okay, now the quality of wastewater it is determined on the basis of dissolved oxygen. On the basis of the dissolved oxygen content can measure the quality of the water. And the another important thing, just now we have discussed the corrosion reaction. You know that oxygen is responsible for corrosion, so determination of dissolved oxygen content helps to control the corrosion, because the region in which the oxygen concentration will be more, that will act as cathodic region, whereas if the oxygen concentration will decrease, so that will act as anodic region and corrosion will take place on that region. So the oxygen concentration it influences the corrosion reaction. So by measuring the biochemical dissolved oxygen content through biochemical oxygen demand or by chemical oxygen demand, we can say the how much corrosion will occur in that water. Okay, now another important factor which also influences the corrosion, that is the nutrient concentration. nutrient concentration, nutrient which are essential for the growth of aquatic plants or animals. So how the nutrient concentration, excessive nutrient concentration, it is responsible for water pollution. Mainly the nutrients, they are chemical of such as nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, sulfur, calcium, potassium, iron, manganese, boron. These are the different elements, and they are essential for the growth of aquatic plants or animals. And if the concentration of these nutrients in the water body is increased, then they are responsible for corrosion. Concentration of these nutrients in the water body is increased, then they are responsible for corrosion, responsible for water pollution. Now, why? If the concentration of the nutrient is more, then the pollution of water will occur. If the nutrient concentration in the water body is increased, then what happened? The growth of aquatic plants or animals will be more. And if the growth of aquatic plants or animals will be more, therefore, for their respiration, the oxygen is consumed from the water body. And as oxygen is consumed from the water body, therefore the dissolved oxygen level in the water body is decreased, and which is responsible for water pollution. Nutrient enrichment can lead to blooms of algae, and which is called algal bloom, and as a result, and which occurs on the surface of the water. And when algal bloom will occur on the surface water, then what happens? The sunlight, they will not penetrate onto that layer. Their aquatic plants or along with the algae are died, and the bacteria which is present or microorganisms which is present in the water body, that will decompose those dead plants, and for decomposition of those dead plants, further oxygen is consumed from the water body, and as a result, the dissolved oxygen level in the water body is decreased. Okay. And when this type of the algal bloom will occur, then the attractiveness of water for the use in the drinking purpose or recreational purpose will decrease. That means for in this type of algal bloom, or for death of for decomposition of the dead aquatic plants or animals, the water may add color, odor, taste, and turbidity. That's why, that means it becomes a polluted water, and that water cannot be used for any type of drinking purposes. Okay, so these are the various reasons for Okay, so excessive nutrient concentrations are also responsible for water pollution. Now I shall discuss about the limiting nutrients. Limiting nutrients. Limiting nutrients means nutrients that are least available relative to the plant's need. Limiting nutrients means nutrients that are least available relative to the plant's need. That means their supply is less in comparison to the plant's requirement. And there are mainly three limiting nutrients, that is the carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. because plants require large amount of these three nutrients for their growth. Plants require large amount of these three nutrients for their growth. That is the carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. But carbon, it is not actually considered as a limiting nutrient because there are various sources of carbon in the water body. That is from natural source, that is dissolved carbon dioxide. Because just now I told you the greenhouse effect, and in the greenhouse effect, you know that the carbon dioxide is a major greenhouse gas, and with the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is increased day by day due to various human activity and industrial activity. And as the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere is increased, so ocean or any water body, sea, lake, reservoir, pond, these are the reservoir of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide concentration in the water body is increased. So although it is considered as a limiting nutrient, but the availability of carbon in the water body is very high. Moreover, the decaying plants or animal, they also add carbon into the water body. Now next one is the nitrogen and phosphorus. What are the source of nitrogen and phosphorus? In the municipal wastewater, that means the water which is released from municipal premises, that contains the different discharge which contains the animal feedlots and the chemical fertilizers. Different nitrogen and phosphorus containing fertilizers are used, and as a surface runoff, when they mixed with the water body, the nitrogen and phosphorus content in the water body is increased. Other unusual sources of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water body, that is from soaps, from detergents, from chemical fertilizer like urea, phosphate, ammonium sulfate, nitrate, superphosphate. These are the different sources of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water body. And if the concentration of these limiting nutrients in the water body is increased, then what happens? The growth of aquatic plants or animals will be more. And due to their more, aquatic plants will be more, and as a result, they consume more amount of dissolved oxygen from the water body. Certain bacteria or blue-green algae which is present in the water body, that can directly consume nitrogen from the atmosphere. Different nitrogen fixing bacteria which can directly consume nitrogen from the atmosphere and increase the concentration of nitrogen in the atmosphere, water body. And another thing which is also responsible for increase in the concentration of nitrogen in the and carbon in the water body, that is the acid rain. You know that the constituent of acid rain, that is the carbonic acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and nitrous acid. Mainly three oxides of oxides are responsible for the formation of acid rain, that is COX, oxides of carbon, oxides of nitrogen, that is NOx, and oxides of sulfur, that is SOX. So when the acid rain, it will come in contact with the water body, then the nitrogen concentration in the water body is increased. So these are the various sources of limiting nutrient, mainly carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus in the water body. Now, what are the effect if the concentration of these limiting nutrients in the water body is increased? what are the effect of these limiting nutrients? Now, there are in different form, nitrogen may present in the water body, but all different forms, they are not that much pollutant when it is present in the water body. Certain form of nitrogen, it causes serious health hazard. Nitrogen in water, mostly it is present in the form of nitrate, NO3 minus. And in this form, the nitrogen, if it is present in the water body, then it will not create any type of health hazard. But certain type of bacteria which is present in the water body, that can convert nitrate to nitrite, NO2 minus. And when it is converted to nitrite, then what happens? Then it causes serious health hazard. And this nitrite through water, if it is introduced into the human body, particularly for child, then nitrite has very good affinity towards hemoglobin. And the affinity of nitrite towards hemoglobin is more compared to that of the oxygen. So if it is injected or introduced into the body system, particularly for baby, child, then what happens? It replaces oxygen and nitrosohemoglobin is formed, and which is actually the bluish discoloration of the infant will occur, and that is called blue baby syndrome. The blue baby syndrome, that is which mainly occurs for the child when the nitrite, it is introduced into the body system through water, and that nitrite it will combine with the hemoglobin because it has affinity towards hemoglobin, and the affinity of nitrite towards hemoglobin is more than that of the oxygen to form nitrosohemoglobin, and bluish discoloration will occur. That is called blue baby syndrome. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Hello. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, these are the various reasons due to which the water may be polluted. Now I shall discuss about the TDS. I think everybody is familiar with the term TDS because when you install the AquaGuard, then they measure the TDS content in the water. That is the total dissolved solid in the water. And which salts are responsible for dissolved solid in water? Really, the cationic part of the salts are sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and the anionic parts are chloride, sulfate, bicarbonate. So salt of sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and the anions of chloride, sulfate, and bicarbonate, they are mostly responsible for dissolved solid in water, and which is called TDS, total dissolved solid. And the drinking water, the recommended value of TDS in drinking water as per World Health Organization, it is 500 milligram per liter. The recommended value of TDS in dissolved water, it is 500 milligram per liter as per World Health Organization. But in Indian condition, mostly in almost all metro cities, the value of TDS, it is 15,000 milligram per liter. That means the water which is supplied from municipality in all metro cities, the TDS value is 15,000 milligram, 1,500 milligram per liter. That means the TDS value, it is much more compared to the whose recommended value, that is 500 milligram per liter. Now, what are the source? How the dissolved solid in water is increased? What are the reason for increase in the total dissolved solid in water? Actually, the irrigation drainage water, it always contain higher salinity. Irrigation drainage water, that means the water which is used for agricultural purpose, and water which is coming out from the agricultural purpose, that is the irrigation drainage water, that contains very high salinity. And after every reuse, the salt concentration in the water is increased. The effluent from the industries, the effluent which is released from the industry, which is also high salt concentration. And when the effluent from the industries, it is mixed with the water body, then also the salt concentration in the water body is increased. Another important thing is that the salt concentration, it is in the water body, is also increased due to global warming. How? Because due to global warming, the Earth's surface temperature is increased. Water body, that is the ocean, sea, river, lake, reservoir, pond, they are the reservoir of heat. And the temperature of the surface water is increased. And as a result, the massive evaporation of the surface water will occur. And due to massive evaporation, what happened? The salt concentration in the water body is increased. These are the various reasons due to which the salt concentration in the water body will increase. Okay. Now I shall discuss how will you remove the dissolved salt from water. Mainly, there are two different ways by which we can remove the dissolved salt from water. Number one, that is the electrodialysis process. And second one, that is the reverse osmosis process. I think all of you are familiar with the second one, that is the reverse osmosis process, because different water purification machine which is used in domestic purposes, that will use the principle of reverse osmosis. So first I shall discuss about the electrodialysis process to remove the dissolved salt from water. I'll just share the picture of the diagram and then I will discuss. Now you can see the picture of the electrodialysis process, that is the diagram of the electrodialysis process. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this is the particular figure for electrodialysis apparatus. Actually, in this process, what happened? There are two electrodes. This is one positive electrode and this is negative electrode. And in between these two electrodes, there are different ion selective membranes. Ion selective membrane means one is plus, it indicates these are the cation selective membrane, and minus indicates the anion selective membrane. Cation selective membrane means through this membrane only the cation can pass. Anion selective membrane means through this membrane only the anion can pass. This is the simple dialysis cell, and in this process what happened, our objective is to remove both cations and anions of the salt to be removed from water. This is the positive electrode or cathode, and this is the negative electrode or anode. Now just by the side of the positive electrode, we have placed the anion selective membrane, then cation selective. Then alternatively, we will place the anion and cation selective membrane in between these two electrodes. Now you apply the high voltage in these two electrodes. So when you apply the high voltage, then what happens? Then the cation, the anion will move towards the positive electrode and the cation will move towards the negative electrode. Then you see this is the anion selective membrane. So the anion can only pass through this membrane and it will move towards the positive electrode. This is the cation selective membrane, and through this membrane only the cation can pass and move towards the negative electrode. So ultimately what happened, in every alternate compartment the ions are accumulated. That means the concentration of the ions in every alternate compartment is accumulated, whereas in the other compartment the water which is present, that is deionized water. Is it clear? Hello? And that deionized water can be collected. And in this process, the salt which contains both cation and anions and which are responsible for higher TDS value can be removed in electrodialysis process. And you see in this region, the cation which is present, that will also cation which is present in the water, that is accumulated. Moreover, the anions which can pass through the membrane, they also accumulated. Whereas in this region, you follow the mouse pointer, the water which is present, that does not contain any cation or anion. Whereas in this region, what happened? The cation and anions cations are accumulated. But in this region, the water which is present, that does not contain any ions, that is cation or anion. But here the cation and anions are accumulated. So in every alternate compartment, you will see the concentration of the ions will be more, and the particular compartment where the water which does not contain any ions, that is collected. So ultimately in this process, what happened? The water will free from any ions. This is called electrodialysis process. The advantage of this process, the process does not require any chemical additives and has low energy requirement. And that means that's why the process is economically feasible process for demineralization of water. This particular unit of electrodialysis, it is a compact, and the method is best suited for removal of TDS from water. But there are some limitation or disadvantages in this process. The organic molecules, they are not removed in this process, because organic molecules, they will not ionize. Unless they will not ionize, they cannot pass through this membrane. So they may be collect or they may be accumulated on the surface of the membrane to form the clog formation, and which reduces the efficiency of the process. And the wastewater which is accumulated in the every alternate compartment, the disposal of that is called sludge. the disposal of that sludge is a serious environmental problem. So these are the disadvantages of electrodialysis process. Next day I will discuss the reverse osmosis process. Okay. So you take the screenshot and send it to Somajit sir. Okay. Is there any question? Hello? Hello?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay,
No,
now
sir.
I end the class. So I have another class. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.